So we're joined by Alexander Koreiba of Juncos Hollinger Racing in Indy NXT. Alexander, it's great to have you on. We are just approaching Mid-Ohio this weekend, so just starting off, how are you doing? What have you been up to kind of since Road America?
Yeah, first off, thank you guys for having me. Excited. And I'm feeling good about it. I love Mid-Ohio. I got my first IMSA win at Mid-Ohio back in 2022. So I love that racetrack. It's been, building everything this year, learning so much in this Indy NXT car, first time back in a Formula car in like 5 years this season. So huge learning curve, learning a bunch of different tracks as well, like never really raced at Barber or ovals for that matter as well. And so it's been an awesome year so far.
And we've reached the halfway point of the Indy NXT season at Road America. So kind of just how would you assess the first half of your season, maybe compared to maybe what you expected pre-season?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the toughest thing about being a racing driver is, honestly, managing expectations. Because if you put all these expectations on yourself that you're going to, go out and win the thing right out the gate, you're going to be disappointed, obviously. And so, from a couple of races in, it's been a tough season, I'll be honest. It's been one of the tougher ones of my career for sure, because it's number one, a brand new race car to me, like I was saying. And then I think Indy NXT is about as competitive as it's ever been. It might be the most competitive season of Indy NXT in history. And that's the one I chose to, hey, let's go try Formula cars again, because you have the likes of, no joke, every driver in Indy NXT is either been in the road to Indy their entire career. They are a former F2 driver, or the next guy coming up that has won everything on the way up kind of thing. It's so unbelievably competitive right now. And I think it's been fun. I think it's been a good season. Like I said, it's a huge learning curve jumping into a car like this and understanding it. Working with the team and understanding all those dynamics, learning ovals, and there's so many different tracks as well that we go to in the IndyCar side of things that like IMSA doesn't go to, or any sports car racing doesn't go to. And so, man, it's about maximizing the opportunity that I have, right? And it's an amazing opportunity. I have so many people to thank for getting me to where I'm at now, but I'm happy with it. Am I as happy as would I be happier maybe if we were in the top 5 in the championship? Of course, but that's not the situation that I'm in as a driver, that we're in as a team. With us rebuilding this season after a hiatus last year. And so I would give it, it's been a good season so far.
And you kind of mentioned, obviously, you've been out of the single-seater realm for a little while. So I guess for people who maybe aren't aware of your background, obviously doing a lot of sports car racing, just ahead of this 2026 season, just give people a rundown of kind of your racing resume, what you've done, some of the successes that you've had as well.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, I started in the Formula stuff. I got a late start at racing as it was, right? I didn't come from a racing family or anything like that. Nobody around me was in motorsports. My family are in their entertainment business, gospel entertainment. And basically, when I was 14 years old, I decided I wanted to go-kart racing, and they don't even know what that means. Like, what in the world even is that? But we figured it out somehow, went local karting at 14, which, as you guys know, 14 years old to start racing go-karts is so late. Like, Max Verstappen or any one of those guys are in a car at, 14, 13 these days, right? So it was so late. And then by the time I turned 18, I decided I want to hop in a race car. And so I ended up hopping in like an F1600 Formula Ford style of car at the Lucas Oil School of Racing. And from there, it immediately clicked for me. That's the crazy thing, is like, I was not the best driver in karts, I will say. Like, I was decent. I could run up front. I could get some race wins for sure. But it was like the moment I hopped in a race car, it just clicked immediately. And we were on pace right out the gate. Like, I don't even know where that came from, honestly. But all that being said, for me, the dream has always been like, okay, I want to go to IndyCar. Like, it's the coolest thing on earth. You know, Indianapolis 500, in my opinion, is the greatest race on the planet. And you know, who doesn't want to do 240 miles an hour at the speedway, right? So that's always been the goal. So that's why I hopped in a Formula Ford, and from there, kind of did some open wheel experience here and there in like F4 cars and like a little bit of USF or maybe even Indy Pro. And then got a big opportunity to go race LMP3s full time in 2022. And, you know, as a driver who doesn't just get to pick and choose where he wants to race, you know, because I don't know if anybody has told you guys, motorsport requires a lot of money to be a part of. So you have to go where the opportunities are, right? And so that's what I had to do, and that's why I made the shift to sports cars early on in my career, and hopped in the LMP3 car in the IMSA Prototype Challenge, and raced with my teammate at that time, Memo Gidley, very well-known race car driver, IndyCar podium finisher for Chip Ganassi. Drove for many, many big teams back in the day. Phenomenal race car driver, and got to work with him. He taught me a lot about being a racing driver, and we had some really, really good races in 2022. Won some races. I got second in the championship together, and then from there, it was like the stage was set. Okay, like sports cars is where we're going to be, kind of thing. And for the next, it would be 3 years after that, it was all sports car racing, mostly LMP3s, honestly. Did a little bit in GT4 every now and then, like I got an opportunity wherever. But it was mostly LMP3s that I really, really honed my skills, you could say, as a driver, both in the Ligier and in the Duquesne chassis. And yeah, that's where I kind of figured it out. And then for some reason, 2025, I got the urge to go try Formula cars again. So here we are. So,
and just take us a little bit more kind of into that move into Indy NXT. You're at the end of 2025. You haven't raced for a little while. What's given you that urge to race in Indy NXT, and ultimately, how did that turn into a deal with Juncos for this season?
Yeah, so it was kind of crazy. I mean, there's a lot of pieces as to why that all came together the way that it did. Long story short, you could say, is that, you know, I was enjoying my time in sports cars. I love sports car racing, don't get me wrong. But there was a part of me that was like, man, like, you know, you go to the Indy 500 or you go to an IndyCar and you're like, man, I want to do this. You know, like this is, I just want to try, you know, like let's just give it a shot, you know, because I had a conversation with Memo Gidley, and I called him up because I was like, Memo, like I want to try my hand at IndyCar. And I know I'm not the youngest dude in the paddock by any means, but if I could piece it together and we could figure out a way to go Indy NXT racing, what do you think? And he just basically told me straight up, he was like, dude, if you have the budget, number one, if you have the opportunity, if you know the right people, everything, if you could somehow piece it together, number one, who cares about your age, right? And then he's like, number two, there's one chance you get in your career to go after IndyCar. You get, or like any open wheel series for that matter, you know, you get one shot at Formula One, you get one shot at IndyCar, like that kind of thing. And so that's the thing that he told me. He's like, listen, no disrespect to sports car racing, but you can race sports cars for a long, long time, right? You can go compete at the highest level, go to Le Mans, that kind of thing, deep into your career, which is one of the crazy cool aspects also about sports cars. But he just told me in that moment where you're young in your career and you're hungry to go try this, why not? So as soon as we had that conversation, all of my mindset shifted. At that point, I was a development driver for an LMP2 team, and I kind of shifted all efforts then as far as funding, going to racetracks to meet people. Everything became about open wheel racing. Luckily, also, it was right around this time as well that I was doing a lot of driver coaching at the time. And it was like radical drivers or a lot of sports car drivers, obviously in P3s or whatever it might be. And there was this team out of Texas called S's Racing. Well, one of the owners of S's Racing was a guy named Dave O'Neill. Dave O'Neill shortly became the team principal of Juncos Hollinger Racing. and was brought in. I think he was brought in end of 2024, mid 2024, something like that. So as soon as that happened, I text Dave immediately, and I'm like, hey, how do I get to test your Indy NXT? And he was like, well, mate, you got to do this, and like, we'll talk about it. And then, so I met up with Dave. I think we're in Laguna Seca, and met up with him, told him the mission, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's try to figure this thing out. And then I literally tested the car in 2024 at the Chris Griffiths test. And then basically my entire 2025 was going to nearly every IndyCar race, trying to find the right connections, meet the right people within the paddock, find the budget, everything like that. And some way we pieced it all together, which is a really, really amazing part of that story. Because like I said, I don't have the golden ticket of, hey, I want to go race that. Okay, here's the check. It doesn't work like that, right? So very, very fortunate that all came together the way it did.
That test you mentioned last year, 2024, the Chris Griffiths Memorial test you participated in, kind of at that point, were you looking at going to Indy next the following season? Obviously, I know Juncos's plans changed going into that year. So was that initially an idea there, or was it just getting that opportunity to test, as you say? Yeah,
for sure. The plan was to go race in 2025. I'll be honest. Like we were close. I won't say we were near the dotted line, but we were close on it. It's all a fact of partnerships and sponsorships and everything like that, right? And they just didn't materialize going into 2025. Obviously, if I was in my second season of Indy NXT right now, we'd probably be having a different conversation. And more experience is more experience, right? Nothing is a substitute for seat time. But yeah, we were close on it. And then when that didn't come together, obviously the team kind of elected at that point, okay, let's take a year off. And then here we are somehow. So.
And I guess you did only, as you mentioned, race single seaters kind of sparingly. So you've alluded to not having the golden ticket. So maybe if you could just speak about some of the challenges you have faced, not just in terms of single seaters as well, just generally in terms of getting long-term rides, whether that is single seaters, whether that's sports cars, or just touch on the brutality of that aspect of racing, I guess.
Yeah, I could talk about the that side of the sport for a very, very long time. Because at the end of the day, I've never been the guy that, no family money to go and do this sort of thing, right? And it's the hardest part about motorsports, as we all know, right? Finding the budget to go and race cars and get people behind you to do that is extremely difficult. The hardest part is, to get into the sponsorship side of things, to tell you guys a little bit about that. It's all about who you know. And I often have young race car drivers message me, or kids that are trying to break into motorsports message me. They're like, how do I get to do this? Or how do you find the budget? Or how do you talk to a company? I'm like, well, number one, you emailing Coca-Cola asking them to sponsor you is a waste of your time, because at the end of the day, you have to know the right people. And that's a big part of it, because if you don't know a decision maker within that brand, you're not getting any conversation of to get anywhere near the idea of them being on the side of your race car kind of thing. And that is such a massive factor of it, where you have to be at the racetrack, is what I always tell young drivers. If you're gonna be in motorsports, you have to be around it. You have to, every sponsorship deal, every team deal, drive, whatever I've ever put together happened at the racetrack, right? One of my biggest partners for this season, met them at the racetrack. Both of them, actually. My two biggest partners met at the racetrack. And it's really about piecing together for them, not, hey, be on the side of my race car by any means. It is a fact of, hey, what do you need as a company? And what can I help you guys with? Or what is your main goal going into next year? What can we do? Okay, you guys need more connections with C-suite people. within, this bracket of companies. Well, guess what? There's 10 brands within IndyCar that meet those needs that we could introduce you guys to, right? And it doesn't have to do with logos on the side of cars anymore. And it is so difficult. I tell young drivers all the time, I'm like, guys, this is the hardest thing in the world that you'll ever try to do. Getting massive brands to part with their hard-earned money is so hard. It is so impossible. But somehow I through a lot of help because of people around me as well, being able to get very good at that side of things and understanding, like I said, what you need as a company, but also like you do the right things where you make them feel like this is a great opportunity, because it is. Like if you just make it a logo on the side of the race car, that's all it'll ever be, right? But if you make it an experience where you're bringing them out to the races and you're doing, hospitality and all those kinds of things. I can't tell you how busy I was during the month of May for the Indy 500 this past year, entertaining every single practice of the 500. We had guests there from multiple partners, right? And that's the stuff you have to do as a driver. If you don't have the family budget to go and do these things, it is a 24/7 job in order to be a race car driver. 99% of your job is that stuff. The 1% fun stuff is driving the race car, right? I don't know if that answers your question, but I got on a tangent there about it. So
yeah, it's insightful. And I guess like when you're in that position where you are, I guess, seeking partners and people that you can work with, because that's kind of the word people use now. It's partners rather than sponsors. Yeah. And that kind of goes back to what you were saying. But what are you doing when you're at the racetrack and I guess looking last year where you're just there, you're trying to meet people? Do you go in with a plan? Do you go in and literally just try and bump into people, meet them? Like, what is your rationale in terms of trying to find those people while you're just there in the paddock?
That's a great question. What is my plan? Sometimes you walk in and you have an idea of who you'd like to run into kind of thing. Or I'll be honest, most of the time for me, it's just been who you happen to meet a person who another buddy of yours introduces you to. And that's why it's very important for a lot of people to like you and want to introduce you to other people in the paddock, because it's important for people to like you. I'll just say that. And for, to develop those relationships and also have the right people around you as far as like, I don't want to call it a manager not exactly a manager, but you need the right person representing you, right? You need a really good lawyer. I will say you do need a really good lawyer in motorsports. I have a very good one. And like, he's been instrumental in like helping to, hey, you need to meet this guy who is new to the sport and he wants to start building X program. Okay, good to meet this guy, or driver coaching. Driver coaching was a huge aspect as well for meeting people, because you run into some people who obviously can afford to be in this sport, and you develop relationships. That's what it's really just all about. This sport, and really any sport or business in general, I would say, is you're just building relationships with the people around you, and never going in, honestly, with any type of attitude of like, oh, I'm going to get money out of this guy. Like never, like somebody could see that coming from a mile away. You have to go into it with good intentions, right? Because if you're a young race car driver trying to talk to a CMO of a company, they know exactly why you're talking to them. Like there is no, if you're trying to, play the game and smoke and mirrors, somebody's going to see right through that from the beginning. You have to be honest about everything right from the go of how we're going to build this, what this is all about, and what we can do for you, right? If you go in with that attitude, it's not going to work out. Number two, people aren't going to work with you, and they're going to see right through it. So, yeah, it's hard. I'll just say it's hard.
And I guess just kind of expanding on that, we speak about people coming from racing families where they're not doing a lot of this work. They've got those existing links and partnerships, etc., or drivers who are going through various different teams and management agencies to form their own relationships and partners. But kind of from your perspective, you're taking it head on yourself. You're doing a lot of the work, and you don't necessarily have the people representing you like maybe other drivers do. So kind of what are the pros and cons to doing it that way, and like how have you generally learned these skills to do what you're doing?
Well, I would say stress is the biggest con because everything's on you. um, but yeah, I mean, not to say I do everything. I shouldn't phrase it exactly that way. Like I have some very key people around me. I have a marketing director even where she handles literally everything when we go to the racetrack. Like everything outside of the track, before the race weekend, we're all on the calls or we're all developing these relationships, whatever. But I have her simply because, and you need it at this point in my career, right? Where it was like in sports cars where it's a little more laid back, don't exactly need this, right? Or like, I don't want young drivers to see this and go, I need a manager and a marketing director tomorrow, right? And they're racing, F4. No, you don't need that. But when you get to the stage of Indy NXT where, you're at an IndyCar weekend and it's very, very intense, the schedule is super jam-packed. I need that kind of person where she helps me like be a race car driver, honestly, where during the weekend I can focus on just driving the race car. And somehow she knows my exact schedule. She knows where I need to be. She tells me where to go. Like I'll walk out of the engineering trailer after we just did a 45-minute debrief. She grabs me and she's like, hey, you have 40 people here. You have to give a tour to right now. Okay, I'll do it. So I give a tour of the race car and all those kinds of things. But yeah, never been the guy who just had, as I said earlier, the golden ticket to just be a race car driver, right? If during, 100% of the time, right? Where, I wake up, I look at emails, I have phone calls, all that kind of fun stuff. It definitely is annoying for my cycling because I'd prefer to be able to just get on a bike and ride a lot more. But mid bike ride, I'm 2 hours in and I've missed 4 phone calls from partners. And I'm like, well, I guess I'd better cut this bike ride a little short today. But yeah, it is, it's the only way and the only path I had to make it work. So that's what you got to do, right?
I mean, this really clearly speaks about kind of your ambitions and goals, because it must be so easy to give up when you're having to put all this work in to try and make a dream of your career. So I'm kind of interested, when was the point you realized that you do really want this to be your career and taking it seriously to do so? And kind of when did you start this process of constantly reaching out to partners by yourself and the rest of your team?
It's a great question. I think when that mindset shift happened, it was like midway in karting, I would say. Like midway through karting, because even at the karting level, we couldn't afford to go race at like the national level, right? So it was a matter of, even at that point, building relationships and meeting the right people. And, I was bartering for rides. I was helping one team run their social media so they'd take a little budget off my weekend rate, to go race go-karts. And I think the approach has always been, if you want to be a professional race car driver, kind of the dress for the job you want kind of thing, where, when I show up at the racetrack, even from the time I was in F1600s, you wear the black polo, the black pants, you say yes sir to everybody, you dress the part, you look the part, since the very beginning of my career as well, like taking social media seriously, because everybody you're talking to regarding partnerships or talking to a team about being their driver or anything like that, they go look at your social media, right? And if it's not top-notch shape, or if you're, I don't even know, if you're doing weird stuff on social media, I don't even know, or liking weird, that's the thing nowadays where you can get in trouble for the things you like, and it's like you got to be careful of those things. But it's you have to, if you want to be an IndyCar driver, don't be an IndyCar driver when you get to IndyCar. You got to behave like an IndyCar driver from the moment you set out on that journey, right? And that's always been my approach, is like, I want to go to IndyCar, I'm going to behave like it, even though I'm driving F1600s and nobody's even at this racetrack, right? And there's no fans or nothing. So you always have to have that mentality as a driver.
So I guess kind of case in point of this relationship building, but from maybe a non-commercial standpoint, is Dave O'Neill with this deal with JHR for Indy NXT, obviously. So I guess compared to maybe where you'd had shortcomings in finding rides in the past or what have you, what went into securing this full-time deal in Indy NXT this year that was maybe different to the past? I know you've kind of already spoken about putting it together, but what maybe was different this time around that allowed you to get this success of just getting this ride?
That's a good question. I mean, blatantly honest, it's the fact of we were able to piece together the right partners. And not to keep talking about partners, but it was the kind of thing where the Juncos side of the house and like the Juncos Hollinger side of the house, they have a lot of opportunities for partners, right? And the fact that as well, because I had such a good relationship with Dave and the full team and everything, we were able to develop this together, you could say, where there's such an awesome team because like the marketing team at Juncos is a fantastic group of people where they were instrumental in this, where it takes a village to put this kind of thing together. And it's not just me and even my people, but it's also their team because, you know, there's partners within the Juncos ecosystem that we needed to make this make sense. And the only way X partner of mine signs on is if they get to talk to this person who's associated with the Juncos team. Well, they made all those things happen right from the get-go. And it was like, even before I was even their driver, I was just testing with them, right? Or it was like mid-2025 when we're all talking about this, but there's nothing signed. They were willing to, like, you know, I would bring people in for a tour of the Juncos, you know, race car, and I wasn't even their driver yet. You know, we were a couple of weeks out from signing, but it's like, hey guys, can I bring this partner, this potential partner to the race shop and give them a tour? Of course you can, you know, anything to make this thing work. And so it was so awesome of Dave and his whole group to be so willing to work with me because they could see, I think, you know, knowing Dave as well as I know him as well, he knew how badly I wanted it. And he could see how hard I was working for it. And they did whatever it took to help get me in that race car. And that still goes to this day. Like Indy 500, we had so many guests, like I was talking about, where, you know, we had 20 guests of mine in the IndyCar pit at one point. You know, it's an IndyCar. It's not my car. But, hey, these are your partners. We want you to be in our IndyCar at some point. If your partners and you move into our IndyCar, then it's just more success for everybody. And they've been so awesome from all of those perspectives.
So just to follow up on a point you made, that like when you're in this period of kind of, you think you're going to sign, you're maybe a couple of weeks out from signing, you maybe need to still attract a couple of partners to get that over the line. Yeah. What does that feel like? What's the pressure of that? Like, just talk us through that process.
Well, I mean, I was the 24th of 24 drivers to sign in Indy NXT, right? We were literally the last seat. There is so much pressure from that side, where there was one point in, like, it would have been November-ish. No, I think it was even later than that. When did I sign? March. No. Early March. When was St. Pete? Early March.
St. Pete was first weekend of March.
February.
Yeah. So, okay. It would have been mid-January to early February. We were still working on it. And
19th of February is your answer.
That's my signing? Okay. 19th of February is my signing day. No joke. We were a week out at that point. And you hear, you know, rumblings of, another driver has a blank check and he might show up. Literally every day, my parents would attest to this. You've never seen me, you know, with less hair on my head, essentially, than at that point in my life, where it felt like, you know, one day it's like, hey, this is done, we're doing this. The next day it feels like, oh no, this is collapsing underneath it, like all of it. And no joke, it's not just a matter of like, oh, well, we're going to miss the opportunity for the ride. That was not the attitude. The attitude was, I moved to Indianapolis for this ride. I moved to Indy, changed my entire life, and moved out to Indy just for this. So if this doesn't work out, I have no clue what I'm going to do, right? And so it was so much pressure. And the day we did signing, I'm not going to say I cried or anything, but the relief when I signed was so huge. But then we had to go race cars. So then you start thinking about other things. But when we finally got that over the line, man, it was the biggest weight off of my shoulders, you could say.
So on the racing race cars point, like I know it's probably kind of comes secondary, this idea, but you don't have much prep time then when you obviously are within 2 weeks. So
we missed two tests rolling in. We missed 2 tests rolling into the season, which really slowed down any learning going into it. But hey, you got to do what you got to do. So, I mean, going into St. Pete was not easy. I mean, you roll into your first event and it's a freaking street course, right? I love street courses now. I really do. I seriously enjoy them. The most fun I've had all year on a street course was Detroit. Detroit was so awesome. It was a great weekend for us. We ran top 15 in the practice sessions, except for one, we had the transmission issue, but we ran top 15, best qualifying so far of the year. And we were delayed with a red flag. We were on track for like a top 10 in quali that race. The race got a little bit away from us, but I love street courses now. They are so much fun. They're bumpy. They remind me of like Sebring with way more walls, right? And rolling into St. Pete, your first race in Indy NXT, you try as a driver to put it out of your head, but that first practice, and you're driving that close to walls, it's like, holy cow, like this is intense. There's 24 freaking cars on the track, and you're looking in your mirrors, and these guys have all been here for 4 years, and I'm literally doing my first laps right now. It was intense. There was a lot of pressure, and there's always that thing in the back of your mind as well, like, hey, like, there's a lot of walls around, and you don't want to crash this race car. And it's like it was not ideal, but survived is what I could say about St. Pete. So
you mentioned a little bit earlier about the role you've done as a driver coach, and obviously we've spoken about how that's helpful to build partners and relationships, but kind of initially, why was it something you chose to take on? When did you decide to take it on? And kind of what can you learn, if anything, from being outside the car but helping others out?
Yeah, honestly, it's the first part of that. It came about simply because got the opportunity to do it because a gentleman wanted me to come coach him, if I'm honest. And it's a route that obviously a lot of drivers do. And, most viewers don't know that, when you're not Scott Dixon making a bunch of money racing race cars, most race car drivers daily, their day job is to driver coach. And it's a very fun avenue to be a part of, because it's like, hey, you get to drive race cars all the time, or you're instructing. It has its moments where it's a little sketchy, but you have fun, that's for sure. But when that came about, and like, it was probably 10 years ago. I've been probably driver coaching now. Maybe a little less than that, but the best part about it is like the developing of relationships, but it's your day job. As a race car driver who's, not making a pile of money driving race cars, you have to go coaching. And that's what a lot of guys have to do, where I've coached everything. I've coached Ferrari Challenge cars. I've coached LMP3s. I've coached Dodge Hellcats in Phoenix, Arizona for, days on end. It's a cool aspect of the sport. And that it keeps you sharp as well as a driver, where it keeps you driving stuff that you thought you would never drive, right? Like I've driven, front wheel drive, hot hatch stuff, and or I've had to do I've had to give lessons to police officers on how to do J-turns. I've driven McLaren Sennas because they needed a shakedown. Like it's the full spectrum, which is important also for like young drivers, in my opinion, of like, you need to be able to drive everything and you need to be quick in everything. And like, you got to throw down a lap in everything you drive, whether that's a Hellcat or a minivan or a single seater, whatever it is, you need to just be good at driving cars and race cars.
You've mentioned a lot of things you've done as part of driver coaching. Somehow what you haven't mentioned is I saw the fact that you coached Keanu Reeves at some point previously. How was he like as a student?
Oh man, Keanu was the coolest dude like ever. But like everything you see about him online, of him being, you know, the nicest person and, you know, charitable, everything like that. He is the coolest guy you could ever imagine. And great student. He really, really was. And that all came about because at this point I was living in Texas and I was doing driver coaching, a bunch of it at this time. And I was racing P3s. But I was at a country club style track in Texas where at this track, Toyota was a big partner of ours. And Toyota came to us and said, hey, we want to put celebrities in race cars and have them race in the Toyota GR Cup. And the big goal is you guys train them. And it's a big marketing campaign that they are going to go then race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the SRO finale of the Toyota GR Cup. Like, cool, this sounds fun. Like who are we going to work with? Well, the first one they told us is they go, it's Cody Jones of Dude Perfect. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like Dude Perfect. I've watched Dude Perfect my entire life. Like I remember when the Johnny Manziel video happened and, you know, the top of Aggie Stadium, they made the shot, right? And that was crazy. And so, yeah, they bring out Cody and he likes the idea of it. And we worked with Cody for 6 months, all the way leading up to the race in October. They come to us like a month later and they're like, hey, we want to put one more celebrity in the car. And we're like, cool, who is it? And they're like, it's Keanu Reaves. We're like, well, that's pretty cool. And we just told him, hey, if you can get us another race car to train him in number one, but also compete in, like, let's get another one. And the hard part about Keanu was he's so freaking busy because of obviously movies, and he's in like video games like Cyberpunk and that kind of, I don't even know what he does half the time, right? But they told us you get 2 days with Keanu to train him. And we're like, hold on, we cannot, like, that's not possible because, you know, they came into it telling us as well, oh, he's done a bunch of stunt driving for movies and that kind of thing. And we're going, stunt driving is not driving a race car. Stunt driving is 30 miles an hour. You pull a handbrake and the thing slides into the space and the camera's right here. That is not driving a race car. And so like, okay, they're like, we'll give you 4 days. We're like, we can work with 4 days. So we did literally 4 days of training for Keanu, the 4 days before the race event, right? So it was get him there the first day, and we got him in a GR street car, right? The GR86 with the manual and the whole bit. Get him in that. Like the coaches set the time for him to chase for the rest of the day in the street car. He's 30 seconds off. And we're like, oh boy, this is really, and I love that your guys' reactions to that because I've done interviews before where I say that and people have no clue that 30 seconds is a lot in racing. But I'm like, it's impossible. We cannot beat that. End of the day, he was like, 5 seconds off, right? It's like, okay, like we're working with something now. We're getting there. Day 2, put him in the race car. And no joke, day 2, I thought he was going to quit. I thought because we put him in the race car, it's so mentally taxing driving a race car, right? It's also Texas in the middle of the end of the summer. Or it would have been, near October. It's still hot in Texas. But it's so mentally taxing on him. There was a look on his face at one point. I thought we were done. It was just a matter of, okay, like let's go take a long break, and chill for a little bit. Day 3, there was a switch that he flipped. And it was like, oh man, like things are happening now. Day 4, he was matching Cody's times in the GR Cup car. So 6 months of training versus 4 days of training, and he's matching the other celebrity. We're like, we did it. We figured this thing out somehow. And it was those 4 days, travel day at the track and on track at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And that was one of the wildest experiences I've ever had. You've never seen an SRO paddock with so many fans trying to get in one paddock, like tent area. And it was ours. You know, there were fans, giant Keanu faces printed on, you know, canvas board type of stuff. And there were some psycho fans there. It was crazy that whole weekend. And my whole job that entire weekend was just keep those two alive. It was be their spotter, do data with them, do this. Like, it was so intense. I've never been so tired after not driving a race car.
How did they do?
They did great, honestly. I mean, the whole goal for Cody, he literally had it on his visor strip. It said, don't get last. And he didn't. And so if you guys go check it out, because if you watch race 2, well, number one, there's also a Dude Perfect video of it, and it's phenomenal. That video is unreal to watch. But if you watch race 2 of the broadcast, race 2, it was like the stars just aligned for this, because race 2, Cody, I think he dropped a wheel on exit of like turn 2, which on the Indy road course, you know, after the curbing, it develops really bad ruts in the grass, because the sports cars tear up that grass at that track because they don't care. So he dropped a wheel, and when you drop a wheel in a GR Cup, sometimes the tow like will go out, right then and there. All of a sudden, your car goes from, you know, dead even tow to then 3 mil out in the rear, and it's undrivable now, right? Well, that happened to Cody, and Cody was actually further up the field. He was like P18 probably at this point. Starts dropping back because the car is really hard to drive now at this point. Keanu finds Cody, and they battled for like 3 laps straight. And it was like so perfect. If you go back and watch it, it's awesome to see. Also, because the broadcast didn't even care about the top 5 battle anymore. The top 5 are nose to tail battling for the win. They don't even care about those guys anymore. The celebrities are going at it. And it was so awesome to watch.
That is incredible. And I guess switching tack a little bit back to you, on I guess not a lower note, but that was just quite amusing, quite lighthearted. This is maybe a bit more hard hitting. Obviously, you've had a lot of hardships in terms of just the hard work you have to put into kind of securing stuff for your own career. So when you have times where you don't have a ride, you have times where you've obviously mentioned the pressure and just the relentlessness of trying to secure things. Just talk a bit about the mentality you have to have and the resilience you have to essentially just not give up trying, because it must be easy just to think, crap, this is just never going to happen.
Yeah, that is a very, very loaded question. I mean, man, everybody has their hard days, obviously. Some days really suck in motorsports. I'll just say that. You know, you get you get way more no's than you get yeses. You lose a lot more than you win. Yeah, it's such a tough sport, dude. But honestly, you just have to have the mentality of like quitting has never even occurred to me, right? Never even entered my mind of like you always can find a way. Hey, if it's not this season, it's next, right? If it's not today, it's tomorrow. Like, I saw a quote from, believe it or not, Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen had a great quote, actually, that I saw a long time ago, where he said, in this interview I saw him do, he said, if you don't quit, you might make it. And if you do quit, you definitely won't. And that's kind of been my mentality, where it's like if you absolutely give up, you you basically said, I can't do this, or I'm not going to be able to do this, or something like that. Whereas you never know what can happen. You really never know. I met my biggest supporter and partner at the racetrack just by happen chance, right? Like just out of nowhere. It like, and like, not even on just the partner side, but also the racing side, where, you know, you have a terrible weekend and you think it can't get any better, and this is the end. Well, at the next race, you podium or something like that. And you always have to be like looking forward, and you cannot let the negatives of the sport, because there's a lot of them, believe me. There's a lot of negatives in the sport. You can't let any of it get to you. You know, turn off social media, turn off, you know, any bit of that. It's like you have to treat the sport almost like it's an iRacing lobby, where you have to treat it as though, hey, I might have absolutely destroyed, it might have been my fault, but I wrecked a car in that one. Hey, there's another one in an hour starting, and we can try that one. So you have to be so resilient, and yeah, you just can't give up.
So you said you always have to look forward. Let's look a bit at the present and the future just for these last few minutes. You're obviously back in Indy NXT. You've kind of mentioned a few times the fact that you're very conscious of the fact that you're older than a lot of these drivers. I mean, you have drivers who are 17 years old that you're competing against. So does it bother you? Like, are there actually kind of drawbacks to it? Just talk a bit about that.
At the end of the day, I think the age thing in motorsports is stupid. I really do, where it's like, I don't care how young they are anymore. Like, it used to really get to me where I'm like, you know, you think your career is so far behind and, oh, I got to do this. Well, I'm going to be careful with my words here, but it's like, if you want to go after something, who cares what your age is? Like, at the end of the day in motorsports, I'll be very blunt. If you have the budget to go and race, nobody can tell you no. And it's really that simple. Like, you have to have the accolades, obviously. You can't just go race any series, right? You can't just go hop in anything. I should have prefaced that with that. If you have the resume, though, to go and do this, and the skill set to do this, and you got the budget as well, who cares? Like, who cares what your age is then at that point? Because now, if you're 50, you're not going to Indy next. I'm sorry. But, you know, it's just one of those things where the younger, the better kind of thing, I hope in motorsports is starting to go away a little bit. And it feels like it has, because I think the worst time was when like Max Verstappen hopped in a F1 car at 17 years old. And I always say that's the moment that ruined motorsports for a lot of kids, because their dads pressured them more than ever to, you know, ruined a lot of careers, because a lot of dads wanted their son to be the next Max, and then they you know, pushed too hard, and then their career, you know, they were burnt out and then it was over. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, my attitude is just, who cares? Who cares? If somebody is like, oh, he's 17 years old, or oh, he's 15 and he's the youngest, I'm like, okay, like, that's cool and all, like, good for him. And you know, I can't imagine being a 17-year-old in Indy. I remember how stupid I was at 17. Like, I did some dumb stuff, you know. But yeah, it's just the drivers also today are a lot different, where, you know, there's a lot of the younger guys who are pretty mature as, you know, humans, because some of them have like been forced to mature, where none of them got to go to high school. Right. Or, you know, their entire lives, they've been homeschooled and tutored, because they've literally been like bred to be race car drivers. Right. For me, it wasn't the case. Like, I had a normal, you know, childhood. I raced go-karts, but I wasn't the prodigy kind of thing that our son, you know, we're pushing him into IndyCar at the youngest ever. Like, it wasn't that way for me. And that's just how the cards were dealt. But, you know, for anybody that might be watching this that thinks, oh, I'm too old to start motorsports, or, oh, I'm 20 and I really want to race at Le Mans someday, but I think I'm starting too late. No, you're not. You're really not. You know, like there are plenty of guys that have made it at a later age or anything like that. I can get on that tangent for a while, but there's my answer for it. So
it's been a while since you last raced in single seaters, as we've discussed a little bit earlier. Yeah. So I guess the first couple of rounds this year, like, what were the real challenges of getting back into a single seater? Has there been an adaptation period for you so far this year? And what do you really need to improve on if we look into the second half of the season after what you've established in the first 10 races?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing to get used to at the beginning of the year was simply the I would say the high speed in this car is pretty tremendously high. Like, it's unreal how fast this car is in the high speed. Always been good on the brakes. Like, that's one area I've always excelled, and it's like it shows in the data that, like, I'm one of the, last of the late breaker kind of guys where for some reason I've always been good on the brakes in race cars. But the high speed has been difficult, as well as just adapting to the tire. Because I was on, like, I drove the Michelin tire on the LMP3 car for like 4 years straight, right? And so you go from the Michelin to the Firestone, and they're just a totally different compound. They have such a different feel. And also, an LMP3 car, or any prototype for that, or any sports car, they're heavier. And so you try to, rotation in a LMP3 looks like this, where it's just like 2-degree slide, like, oh, the car's loose, like, oh, that's it. A rotation and a Indy NXT car is no joke, hand over hand, like chasing it. And then I get out and I'm like, this was something to adapt to at the beginning of the year. I go talk to my engineer and I'm like, the car seems loose. And then we go look at onboard and they're like, oh, it's not loose. And I'm like, just trying to shift your mindset in that this car has to be driven so aggressively over the limit to get the most speed out of it. It is not a smooth, dainty driving style with this thing. It is the most fucking Bronco, get after it. And if you're not sideways in the carousel at Road America, you're not going fast enough kind of driving style. And that's just something you have to get used to. And it's something that not even iRacing can prepare you for, because you can't drive it that loose on iRacing. So that's been the biggest transition. I'd say the thing going into later this year is just maximizing qualifying. I haven't had the best qualifyings this year, I'll be completely honest with you. And it's really about just if I can get more out of quality and get to the most in the tire, right? Because, like I said, it's amazing how much further you can take the tire on low fuel new tire. And just my experience of 2,000-pound sports cars, you don't take it that far. And so it's really been that kind of approach and just learning those kinds of things. And I feel like I'm a pretty good racer when it comes to racecraft. And like I feel like every time we qualify near the back, we always end up, we gain like 10 positions in 5 laps or 10 laps. And I'm like, okay, so I can race anybody, but we got to put together a better qualifying for the rest of the year. So that's been a big goal of mine. So.
And just to finish, I guess on ambitions, kind of the rest of this year, and then ultimately into next year, like, what are you targeting? And then ultimately, you've said it's IndyCar. So yeah, what are the ambitions and the goals coming up?
Yeah, for sure. The goals are, keep getting a lot more points, obviously, for the rest of this year. Put in some top 10s are needed. We've been so close so many times to some top 10s, and then it just kind of fell away. But looking for some top 10s, maybe some top 5s. Who knows how things go? But that's really where the goals are right now. Is that, and then going into next year, I want a second year of Indy NXT. That's definitely on the cards. You need a year too in this year, especially with my situation of when you have people see it and they go, oh, Dennis Hauger did 1 year. Well, Dennis Hauger is one of the greatest race car drivers I've ever seen. The guy is phenomenal. I played golf with him yesterday. He's unbelievable behind the wheel of a race car. He's such a good friend. But that guy, like, you go from F2 and the Red Bull Junior Academy to Indy NXT. It's like, yeah, of course he did what he did in Indy NXT. I'm a sports car driver going to Indy NXT. Like, I need a year too. Like, there's no two ways about it. I'm not going to IndyCar in 27, right? But the goal ultimately would be like, end up in IndyCar in 2028 or 2029, especially with the new car coming, right? If you that's, I don't want to speak too much on it, honestly, but if you can show up and be a rookie in IndyCar when everybody else has to be a rookie again because they're in a new car, like, it's not a bad time to have to join. Obviously, there's a million things that have to go right for that to happen, and the budgets have to be right, the relationship, everything all the stars have to align again to end up in IndyCar, but obviously that's the goal. And yeah, if you guys haven't been to an Indy 500, I highly recommend it. So
we were there this year. So
awesome.
First of many, hopefully. We saw you around all the time, so you were doing what you said you would. We saw you plenty of times.
Okay. Yeah, I was there.
You were truthful to your word. We can back up your word for the viewers' benefit. Alexander, it's been an absolute privilege to speak to you. I'm sure at some point in the future we'll catch up once again. So we wish you the best of luck for the rest of the year, and hope to speak to you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. Talk to you soon.